And we're good. Yeah, his single target damage is gross.
I am the original. Am I?
Yo guys, what is up? Max in our first Descendant video, and today we're going over my guide to Ultimate Blair. Now, Ultimate Blair just dropped today. You can farm him via amorphous materials. I personally did swipe for him, but I want to break down his new Transcendent Modules and his new builds and all of the new quality of life that they've added to him. There's a bunch of cool new things going on with him, so I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Let's get right into it. All right, so now let's talk Transcendent Modules. So the first Transcendent Module that he got is Next Level Recipe. All these Transcendent Modules are going to be Ultimate exclusive, and this changes his 1 and his 3, and it does some really cool things for him. So with his new 1 ability, basically, this turns you into a fire version of Valby. Every 7 meters that you walk, you're going to be creating a flame zone, and these flame zones are going to leave, damaging areas that will ignite enemies. And this has a cooldown on it, but it also scales pretty well with duration. Basically, the way that this works is when we click the button, as we run, we are just going to be getting flame zones on the ground. As you can see, every 7 meters. It's pretty quick. So these are just going to be constantly overlapping. But the cool thing with this ability is that if you get enough cooldown and enough duration, you can actually overlap them. So even though you have only 1 ability active at a time, if you have enough cooldown, you can overlap them and have basically multiple of these up, which is going to drastically increase the damage, because then you're leaving 2 flame zones every 7 meters rather than 1. So cooldown and duration are both going to be very important for really scaling up the damage of his first ability. The other awesome thing that's happening is his 3 now allows you to move very quickly in it, and it does this huge AoE. With this Transcendent Module, it also gains significantly more damage, which is great. But the cool thing is you can use the 3 while you're using the 1. So with the 1 up, you can run around and sprint, and then you can press the 3, and now you're casting your 3rd ability while you're also leaving damaging trails. Now, it's important to note that while you're in your 3rd ability, you do not count as sprinting, so you cannot scale your movement speed with things like sprint cores on your weapon. However, you can increase your movement speed by multipliers or percentage increases to your movement, which we'll talk about. But we can actually make him pretty fast in this mode, which is going to make him feel really great. Note that this also scales with range and levels to range. On this specific build, we're going to be having the range cap, so you don't need to worry about any not getting the max amount of range out of your 3rd ability or your 2nd. And note that your 2 ability is going to be something that you're wanting to press pretty often. Basically every 14 seconds with this setup. This is going to give you a 25% movement speed increase, which is huge for his 3rd ability and his 1st ability, because you're going to be moving faster while casting them, but it also gives you more damage and recovers your MP. This is going to be on a really low cooldown, so you can have this buff up 100% of the time. So now let's go over the mods for Next Level Recipe. So to start, we want a bunch of cooldown. Cooldown helps because we can overlap the 1 ability on top of itself. So that's great, and we want to have all of our buffs up and be able to basically use our abilities 100% of the time. So we're going for Nimble Fingers and MP Conversion. Note that any MP decreases don't really matter on Blair. He's got 100% uptime on MP very easily with his 2 abilities, so we don't need to put on any skill cost reduction or things like that. Then we're going to put on HP, pretty simple, get some more survivability. And then we're going to put on 2 quality of life mods. Skill Expansion is all the range that we need. We're going to be getting the rest of his range from his Arcade Tuning Board and our inversions, which is going to get us up to 240% range, and then our components can get us the Last Way or your Reactor. So we're range capping with just a single range mod. He also can get a 100% crit chance with emergency measures plus front lines, so you don't need to get you don't need to use skill insight. So we're going to be using emergency measures and front lines for crit. Note that I originally wasn't using front lines, and I was using just emergency measures, which wasn't capping out his crit, but it was still, with emergency measures, it was still a 3% increase in damage over skill insight, which you could use, but this is just simply better. And our Arcade Tuning Board is going to give us even more crit. So we're going to be using emergency measures and front lines and skill concentration. This is going to give us a massive 4.8 damage multiplier and 100% crit rate. So all of his abilities are going to be critting 100% of the time, and they're going to be dealing almost 5 times damage with crit, which is just disgusting. We're going to be using Focus on Dimension and Focus on Fire for more skill power and skill cooldown for, you know, his 1 and 3, which are both Fire and Dimension abilities, which is like the main things we care about for this build. And then skill duration is what I'm using here. Note that there's a few things that I like tested out on. I think duration feels really good on him. It's massive quality of life. It allows all of your buffs to be active longer. It allows you to be in your 3 longer. It allows your 1 to overlap more. So I really like duration on him. If you want to get more damage on him, you could use Decimator. Decimator is a great mod on him. I did do the math between using Decimator or Frontlines, and Frontlines just barely beat Decimator in damage for this build. However, Frontlines is up 100% of the time, while Decimator is a stacking thing that is only up, you know, a certain amount of the time. And so I'm not using Decimator on him. I opted for some extra quality of life. But if you want to just go pure damage, you could get rid of skill extension and use Decimator here. All right, for his next build, a new Transcendent module is Killer Recipe. This transforms a lot of his abilities and gives him a new custom resource. That custom resource is why we're going to be holding the Secret Garden, but we'll get more into that later. But his new passive, basically, instead of stacking up skill crit rate and damage based off of your flame zones, you get crit rate and damage and skill power modifier if you're attacking burning enemies. So this won't display on your character card. You won't be able to see your own like crit rate, but note that you're getting these big bonuses whenever you're attacking burning enemies. And then whenever you are defeating an enemy, you're going to be getting a Chef's Touch, which is a new custom resource. You can have 10 of them. They get removed if you're not in combat for 20 seconds. But with this build, we're going to be basically getting Chef's Touch all the time because we're going to be killing pretty quickly. And then we're going to be able to use that basically with his new 4th ability. The big draw to his new 1st ability, in my opinion, is the Spicy Meatball. This is a like Dragon Ball Z-esque attack where you just spam fireballs. This does increase with every 17% of your caster's duration. So if you have an extra 17% duration, you get 1 extra meatball. Note that this fires a ton of them, which is pretty nice, but it massively increases the cooldown. We're going to be wanting to put as much cooldown as we possibly can to get this on a lowest cooldown as possible so that we can use it relatively often. Right now, I've got mine on like an 8-second cooldown, but I don't have cooldown on my Reactor right now, so we can get that definitely lower. His second ability, now because a lot of the damage of the second ability is moved to his passive, his second ability just gives you MP recovery based off of the amount of Chef's Touch. Note that this doesn't consume Chef's Touch from my understanding, so you can just click this and get a bunch of MP back. Your third is unchanged, just works normally, and then your 4th ability actually consumes the Chef's Touch to send out a meatball at a bunch of enemies. It does a ton of damage. Unfortunately, this has a max target count of 6, which in TFD is not a lot of enemies. You'll be facing way more than 6 enemies constantly. So I think this, in my opinion, should be buffed to give you more targets, at least 10 targets for 10 stacks of Chef's Touch. And then you're going to be getting the damage per Chef's Touch, so you get 2,600. Works decently well. This is definitely my least favorite of the 2 new Transcendent modules, but this ability is pretty cool. I just think he lacks the like AoE clear, and this isn't really like a bossing module setup in my opinion, because you need to be able to kill enemies to get Chef's Touch. So, but the fact that it's limited to killing enemies, you know, not going to be great for bossing, but just to give you a little showcase of this. Basically, with your 1 ability, you get to spam these fireballs that do a bunch of damage. They go out, and then, for example, with our 4th now, we can basically target. As you can see, I can't even target all of the enemies in this pack, which I think is a little, you know, lame. And then you throw that out, and even if you can't target it, it'll still do AoE damage, so you can still hit multiple enemies. But that is kind of his, like, gameplay loop of his 4th. Or his new Transcendent module, is you're going to be spamming these out to do a bunch of damage. Those will kill enemies and then gives you Chef's Touch to then go use your 4th, which you can then go cast out. By the time that that's done, you're basically back into your 1, and then you could use like a flamethrower while you wait for your cooldown of your 4th, and then just kind of go back into it. So pretty cool gameplay loop. I prefer the other Transcendent module personally, and the build for this is actually exactly the same as the other build, so you don't need to do any crazy catalyst combos. basically, this does scale with your caster's duration, but I found that just one duration mod, skill extension, is enough. Going into more duration means you miss out on other damage bonuses, and the other damage bonuses lean heavily more into larger DPS increases, going such as like frontlines versus just going for duration. But if you want to cast more, you can put more duration mods on this. But yeah, basically the exact same build. Now, obviously, with Ultimate Blair, all of his old builds still exist, so I'll link you in the description to my old Blair guide, which still holds true today. I did want to point out that Blair is fantastic with guns with the Backdraft mod. This turns his MP heal into weak point and firearm attack. So his 2 ability gives you stacking weak point, firearm, and movement speed, which is fantastic. And then you also get from his Pitmaster firearm crit rate. This makes Blair a fantastic gun descendant. You just lay down your 1 a bunch throughout your 4 and then consume them all with Extinguish, which is going to give you stacking damage. And then with the Pitmaster, you're going to get extra damage. I pair this with just some quality of life with some cooldown and some duration so that we can keep up his buffs for as long as possible. Conditional recharge to delete his health. His health is going to go down really low, and that's going to proc Walk a Tightrope for more firearm damage, and then Shut Focus to give him even more gun damage. I don't have this fully catalyzed yet, but basically you could just build some extra shields and turn him into a like boss nuker with weapons. Pretty cool setup. Definitely, well, you know, not the best gun descendant, especially when Serena exists, but he's pretty strong with guns. For your weapons, you're going to want to be using the Secret Garden. Once again, sprint speed cores don't actually increase his movement speed in his 3, but they do increase his movement speed in his 1, which is really nice. So I like using the Secret Garden. Secret Garden also has custom resource gain on dimension abilities, so that's going to work very well for his like unique chef things. But we don't actually benefit from pest control, so you don't have to worry about that. The big thing about the Secret Garden, though, is that it can use the mod Brisk Walk. This means on hit, you get 24% increased movement speed. This is fantastic for his 3rd ability. The rest of the mods of the Secret Garden really just don't matter, to be honest with you, because you don't need to shoot the Secret Garden ever on Blair. You can just use his abilities. So this is what I have on it right now, but mainly just using it for Brisk Walk. In terms of your Reactor on him, I would strongly recommend going for a skill critical hit rate, or sorry, a skill crit damage cooldown Reactor. I think that's probably going to be best in slot. I've got a range on him right now, which is nice. It does cap out our range. Without this mod on, I think you are sitting at 4% away from range cap. So you just really don't need range on him. I would go crit and cooldown. Would be the 2 that I'd recommend. Just for the extra quality of life and the uptime of all of his abilities. And then for the external set components, you actually have a bunch of choices. I just put these on because they're pretty sick. They give us more duration and more range, which is all great. They reduce our movement speed, but the big thing is whenever we attack enemies with burn-related effects, we shred their fire resistances by 30%. This just means that more enemies take more damage from us. It's another damage multiplier for the build, and so that feels pretty cool. Downside is these do come with 2 shield components, so not great survivability there. In terms of other options, there's always the 2-piece ascending, 2-piece hunter set, which I really like. 2-piece ascending gives you skill cost reduction, and then 2-piece hunter gives you skill cooldown, which is really cool. And those are probably the 2 sets that I'd recommend. You could also use the Invader for some extra range, not really needed. And the Annihilation can also be pretty nice for some extra duration. So you could go like 2-piece Annihilation for extra duration, and then 2-piece Firebrand for even more duration. Duration on Blair feels really great. So a bunch of choices. I'm currently just rocking the 4-piece Firebrand though. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. There's a bunch of other changes to the game with Ultimate Blair. One of the most nice ones is the ability to just basically rank up your stats on your components and your reactors. So this was originally a purple and a blue, and now it's gold and gold. Bunch more things to mess around with, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the build. I will catch y'all on the next one. Final thoughts on Blair. I think he is in a much better state. They buffed his damage, and now he's got a bunch of quality of life. I don't think he's quite in S tier in terms of clear speed. That's still going to be held by, like, you know, your Ineses and Serenas, but I think he's in a comfortable A tier right now. He's just going to be flying through areas, doing a bunch of damage, and I think he should be feeling a whole lot better to play. So you guys, I think they, like, correctly basically put him in a similar tier to Valby. I still think Valby has a little bit stronger things going for her with her like 4th ability, but Blair's looking real good. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Peace.